Okay, thank you. Hi, I'm Chantal Joie-La Marle. I'm in charge of the lab SNCF IMPACT in the Directorate of Social, Territorial, and Environmental Commitment, which is the directorate responsible for CSR in SNCF. I was told to tell you about my background. As a clinician, I am more comfortable listening to other people's backgrounds in private than I am exposing my own in public. I have a multidisciplinary background. I have a double degree in engineering and clinical psychology. I also studied the sociology of organizations and public action and philosophy. I quickly carried out my studies in parallel with my professional activity. It is still the case. It allows me to experience the mutual enrichment of academic approaches and the reality of the working world. I started working on a term modality in a public community. I had a brief experience in the aeronautical industry, working on evolutions of human-machine interfaces. Then I joined the railways industry in the research department, and then in Francilien, to design the mass transit system standards and to promote innovation. I am now in charge of the SNCF IMPACT Lab that promotes innovation in corporate social responsibility and organizational transformation in that field. I am also conducting research on soft skills at the University of Paris, applied in SNCF. As far as my clinical experience is concerned, I worked in a day hospital with children and teenagers, and now I work in private practice with children, teenagers, and adults. I will give you a quick overview of our work in SNCF IMPACT Lab so that we have time to talk afterwards. The purpose of our lab is to lead or accompany the implementation of transformational processes or innovative projects promoting corporate social responsibility. Our team is made up of people with different backgrounds and skills that are quite rare in the company. They are presented on the slide. This team is constantly evolving because we welcome many interns, work study students, and PhD students, which is part of the spirit of this entity, which trains young talents who bring a lot of energy and allow us to continuously integrate new approaches and methods. In return, they can very quickly contribute to major projects with autonomy, mentored by senior members of the team. Our team has 4 major areas of expertise: educational innovation, design, complex data, visualization, and support in conducting transformations, especially cultural transformations. Concerning educational innovation, we intervene from the design of the educational materials to their deployment. We design a wide range of entertaining training devices, interactive e-learning, serious games, and case studies. We conduct our projects with a design thinking approach, and we help teams who wish to do the same, especially for the design of innovative products and services. Our added value in data visualization consists notably in optimizing the cognitive load when operators are provided with new categories of information. So I will give you an example. We have designed a tool to display data on the number of passengers in stations, in addition to the data that the operators were already using frequently concerning the position, delay, and attendance of trains. To allow for quick cognitive information concerning access to stations attendance and to spare operators cognitive load, this new representation exploits the fact that information conveyed by color and size is cognitively frugal and not in competition with numerical information already presented to operators. So as you can see, each station is represented by 2 semicircles, 1 per direction. The size of each semicircle is proportional to the number of people present on the platforms serving the corresponding direction. The color of each semicircle informs about the alert level corresponding to the current attendance compared to the usual attendance level. Eventually, We design and implement transformation processes, taking into account the difficulties and opportunities assessed from a behavioral approach. Our objective is to have the emergence of new habits related to the commitment to corporate social responsibility. I will now detail how we use cognitive sciences and behavioral approach. The first theme of work and research that I will present to you concerns soft skills and organizational transformation. This is the theme of my thesis work and applied research conducted jointly by part of our lab team and researchers from Laboratory of Applied Psychology and Ergonomics. Soft skills are one of the tools that can help managers and more generally the employees of our group to face the transformations of evolving entities. Soft skills are often described with negative attributes. They are said to be non-technical, non-specific. In a more positive perspective, we can say that soft skills are competencies dealing with human relationships, emotions, way of thinking and acting. They are transversal and imply implicit processes which allow their development outside of explicit learning. Our applied research deals notably with soft skills taxonomy, soft skills adaptive value, and with the impact of workshops about soft skills metacognition on self-efficacy and adaptive performance. We also conducted a longitudinal study during confinement. Soft skills have been around for 50 years now. Numerous soft skills taxonomies exist across various fields. They are neither exhaustive nor structured. Even the soft skills definition remains blurred, which can be detrimental. That's why we have worked on these subjects. We sought to build a comprehensive taxonomy of soft skills based on a literature review of existing taxonomies. We hope that future research will further develop the hierarchical structure we propose for this taxonomy and highlight the functional entanglement of soft skills. Our article on this subject is being formalized. We also design and conduct workshops for managers, employees, and even students in order to raise awareness, recognition, and knowledge of soft skills. We measured the impact of these workshops and observed an increase in metacognition, self-efficacy, and adaptive performance compared to a control workshop. Structural equation modeling suggests a mediation effect from metacognition. The latest results show that the effect of these workshops is sustainable over time. A paper on this topic is currently submitted on a peer-reviewed journal. And we wanted to estimate the impact of the variables that we use in real transformation situations. So we conducted a longitudinal study on the evolution of general and specific self-efficacy related to soft skills, adaptive performance and mood during the first confinement in France. Our results suggest that self-efficacy is a stable resource, adaptive performance is predicted by self-efficacy, and self-efficacy and adaptive performance both have a strong effect on positive and negative effects during this confinement. The perspective offered by this study is that enhancing self-efficacy, general and specific self-efficacy, by developing soft skills awareness during workshops would enhance adaptability to unexpected stressful situations induced by organizational transformation. Soft skills are commonly said to be skills favoring adaptation. The aim of this survey is to concretely establish the adaptive value of soft skills based on a survey of transformation experts. So experts had to assess a panel of soft skills in relation to the ability to conduct a transformation. First results show a great importance of soft skills in transformations, as well as their implicit contribution to adaptation, since the experts were not aware of the soft skills they use. We also conduct other work that involves cognitive sciences and behavioral approach. They concern mitigation of cognitive biases that impact engagement in CSR and attenuation of gendered stereotypes. Cognitive biases regarding soft skills and regarding social and environmental engagement can be individual or collective. Awareness and skills, including soft skills, can help us to reduce the impact of these biases. So taking into account cognitive biases and enhancing soft skills can favor the achievement of CSR objectives. Another topic is that we face imbalanced men to women ratio in some professions. So we are currently designing a workshop to raise awareness of the links between soft skills related to these professions and gender stereotypes. We are also preparing a study about relationship between soft skills and gender attribution. For example, are empathy or assertiveness gendered? And we propose a methodology to rework jobs offers in order to mitigate these potential biases. Inclusive mobility is one of the SNCF CSR priority. In this perspective, it is essential to facilitate the mobility of all travelers. A PhD is in progress analyzing the impact of the environment on travelers' behavior according to their gender. The objective is to improve the experience of women in the transport system and especially to adapt train stations to better fit their needs. Effective judgments in a spatial environment help individuals to orient themselves in space. So people rate their surroundings in terms of valence and arousal, which act as cues to navigate in a spatial context. Negative valence induces avoidance, positive valence induces approach, and arousal induces magnitude of the movement. Effective judgments in spatial contexts are linked with the evaluations of other elements called hotspots. So our approach of avoidance tendencies can be represented on a map. This method is called effective mapping. And representing effective judgments as maps would help planners to further understand how gender generates differences in travelers' navigation and deal with the human's negative hotspots. Another topic is cognitive accessibility of train station. A PhD was conducted at the lab to analyze and optimize the mental load of travelers in mass transit. That is to say, very dense urban railway system. The aim of this applied research was to preserve the cognitive load of mass transit travelers by adjusting information, signaling, and spaces. This work was carried out from the 3D modeling of the Saint-Michel station. Populations were faced with different events in this station and compared on the basis of their previous experience with this station. The dependent measures were eye tracking metrics and variables linked with stress and cognitive load. Results showed higher disturbance of experts than non-experts in case of incident. And this work provided information about experts and non-expert strategies of visual exploration, showing what to insist on to optimize navigation in station. These are the publication. So, as a conclusion, our activity fields are very large concerning mobility and CSR, and cognitive sciences and methods inspire all of them, and their use is as diverse as fruitful. So thank you for your attention. We are continuously hiring interns and PhD students, so feel free to send us your applications, and I will be happy to talk to you after the presentations if you have questions.
Thank you so much. What interesting projects you have going on. So now we'll have Bastien do his presentation. Would you like to share your screen?
Yes, please. So let me just share it. And thanks, Chantal, for this nice talk. And I'm looking forward to discussing this as well. Just a moment. Yep. So my talk will be mostly informal. I just gathered some notes, and I'm going to talk a bit more about just my overall feeling.
Do you want to put full screen at least?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Thank you.
So I'm currently doing a CIFRE thesis at RATP. I'm working on passenger information and in particular during traffic disruptions. So let me rewind a bit my career path, if we can call this career path. I first graduated from Sciences Po Lyon and EM Lyon Business School in a combined honors degree in management and public affairs, and then I did another master degree. I did a master of philosophy de PSL for 2 years, which a part of it happens at the DEC. And I was studying at Jean-Nicod, focusing on philosophy of mind and language. And I also did some intro courses from the Cogmaster, so that to be a bit like knowledgeable of the interplay between philosophy and mind and language, and the corresponding more art skill focus of doing science about these topics. I then had almost a year of waiting for my CIFRE to begin with RATP, and this is an advice I have for people in the audience looking forward to perhaps submitting a CIFRE project. It takes a lot of time to build a CIFRE thesis, because you have to first make sure that everyone is happy with the project. So the lab, the company, yourself. This is really important. But then you have all the administrative steps, which can take a lot of time. And for instance, when I submitted my CIFRE project, it almost took a month for it to be assessed by INRT. So these kind of projects have to be built like a good year in advance, because it will take a lot of time to launch. But it's also an opportunity because in general companies are happy to contract you in a standard way, waiting for your CIFRE contract to start. So usually you can negotiate that, and it provides you more time in order to gain competencies and skills about your thesis. And so in the end, I'm pretty happy that it took a lot of time, because it was time I had in order to prepare accordingly for my PhD. And I'm now officially 8 months into my PhD, and I'm working on the temporal disorientation of travelers during traffic disruption. We have a disorientation research group at Institut Jean-Nicod, of which the focus has been mainly spatial disorientation. So what's your state of mind when you feel lost in a forest, for instance? And one of the main points we're trying to make in the group is that there is a fundamental distinction between being lost and feeling disoriented. You can be lost without cognizing it, and you can be not lost, but feeling disoriented. And we are focused really on the metacognitive feeling, which at least we argue that disorientation is a metacognitive feeling, and we are trying to assess what type of feeling it is, and whether across situations you can find this feeling in a similar format. So I'm trying to see whether what we learn about spatial disorientation can replicate in the case of traffic disruption, and the type of disorientation you can feel when there is traffic disruption is usually more temporal form of disorientation, because you don't know when the traffic will resume. You don't know if you will arrive at your schedule, at your appointment in time. For instance, if you have a job interview, you're going to work, it's early in the morning, you can feel disoriented, not knowing whether you should, I don't know, call the person you have a meeting with in order to warn them you're going to be late. So there is a whole set of feelings that you can have, and this is what I'm studying for RATP. let me, I thought that for this talk, cons and pros of doing research in an industrial setting would be an appropriate topic of conversation as well. And for me, so far, the biggest con, let's try to go into this, but you won't be having as much time for doing your research as if you were only doing academia when you're doing a CIFRE thesis, because you are engaging with everyone else in the company you're in. You have lots of team meetings. You're required to use your critical analysis skills, which, if you're doing a thesis, is usually one of your strength compared to other types of employees. And so you're required to bring value to the company in a traditional sense. And this takes a lot of time, and time is precious. And you won't be having as much time as you could if you were only doing research when you're doing research in an industrial setting. So on a personal level, sometimes you can feel that you're not doing as much as you should or you could. But in the long run, I think it makes sense, because you also have other sources of satisfaction. For instance, what I mainly did at RATP was working on existing perceptual datasets. We have survey studies, which are really important for the company in order to understand the client experience. And it's useful to have someone knowledgeable about science in general, but especially cognitive science, in order to analyze the data and in order to help the company and the management establish priorities. And this is really a hard thing to do for a company, especially big companies like RATP, and I'm sure it must be quite the same for SNCF. And if you can help just by providing an interesting analysis, but this makes more sense than that, you really, I think it's here you provide the most short-term value for the company, or outside of any sort of innovation goals. You can really help prioritizing the current plans of action. And this is satisfying, but you sometimes feel you're not being as good of pure researcher as you could be. And you also don't take as much time as you should training as well. So there is a big pro and con here. But there is also there are also big pros, which makes me really happy doing a CIFRE thesis. If you know how to handle the corporate world, you won't have trouble finding funding, because it's way easier to find funding in industrial setup. It's a serene way to do research. You get paid a bit more. And for instance, for me, the end goal is to, at the end of my thesis, like convince people that my work is valuable in order to get more funding and start having a small research team of my own. And this is a kind of career path that sadly the current context in academia favors. I say sadly because I think we will all agree on the importance of having pure research, which wouldn't be applied. But this kind of career path, I feel at least, are really favored in the current context. And you can make good out of it because you also access valuable data sets within the company. You access perceptual data, you access traffic data, you access event data, all sorts of data that you would take so much more time to find if you were not directly in the company. And so in the end, you gain advantages you wouldn't have if you were outside of the industry. And why corporations are interested in working with cognitive scientists? Really, perception matters a lot in customer experience. In the contract between RATP and Île-de-France Mobilité, so Île-de-France Mobilité is a political instance, is a political institution that actually contracts RATP and SNCF in order to run public transports. And for instance, between RATP and Île-de-France, there are 8 million euros per year that can be gained or lost, depending on whether we match customer expectations. And so there are these big survey studies and a lot of money depends on it. So 8 million euros is only for passenger information, so the thing I'm working on, but for the whole of relationship between RATP and Île-de-France, this is almost 25 million euros per year that can be gained or lost depending on the perception of travelers. So you better have someone understanding what so-called perception is, and this is where you provide value and you're trusted within a company, because perception is more and more important. It will continue to be more important because we, in business administration, an ongoing trend is to focus on customer experience as much as possible, and much of it is cognitive and perceptual. And this is where there is a big fit between what you can bring on the table as a cognitive scientist or a cognitive philosopher, and what companies actually wait for. You can also work more on the bring value more to the innovation part of it. So I think Chantal was excellent in showing you how innovation can bring value to the company. And for instance, for me, for my thesis, my field work is based on Twitter. So there are 5 million tweets between which are about RATP on Twitter, and a part of it concerns traffic disruptions. So when people get caught in traffic disruptions, they usually complain on Twitter. And this is really interesting for me because this way I can, like, when I work on this whole stream of textual data, I can gain knowledge about what's their state of mind, and I can track the level of disorientation, which is at least the goal of my PhD thesis on in real time on the field. But I can also identify people I can, for instance, contact in order to send survey studies, in order to see, to conduct the replication studies I talked to you about earlier, comparing spatial disorientation and temporal disorientation. This I won't be able to do it just by looking at textual data from Twitter, but I can contact the people I track on Twitter in order to see whether their state of mind match what we know about spatial disorientation. So you're in a strong position in order to do this kind of project when you're doing a CIFRE thesis, because you're way cheaper than contractors for the same type of projects. Because contractors don't take the time to gain knowledge about the company processes. And I said earlier that you spend a lot of time in team meetings and knowing how the company function. But in the end, it makes a big difference when you're within the company and when you have to make subtle decisions. For instance, on how to define certain concepts, you have to be knowledgeable about how the concept is being defined within the company. So even what's a traffic disruption exactly, and you have to know how processes are being operating within the company in order to have a definition, in order to cross-analyze data. Because if you don't have clear definitions, you won't be able to do interesting, very rigorous analysis, and you can only do this when you're really inside the company. And so you're cheaper. I think you can be. You are a bit less stressed about time, because contractors, they have to deliver on I don't know, 3 months, 6 months. This is kind of temporality a contractor is submitted to. When you're doing a thesis, you're there for a long time, so you're a bit less stressed, you're cheaper, and you are a bit more knowledgeable of actually the very fine-grained definitions you're working on. So all of this make you as a researcher sometimes more fitted to do innovation than contractors which are specialized in innovation. And one reason you're cheaper is, for instance, the company benefits from tax reductions, like the Crédit Impôt Recherche, which is really a big part of your salary that is actually taken into charge by the state. You have, when you're doing a CIFRE thesis, ANRT, Agence Nationale pour la Recherche Technologique, actually provides the company with money, so you're way cheaper than contractors. So I'm finished. I'm hiring too. So I'm looking for especially data scientist type of profiles in order to work on this data set that I generated at RATP, which I have basically all the interactions between travelers and RATP on Twitter. I have more than 10 million tweets right now. I will have 50 when I will be finished with the extraction process. And I'm looking for interns that would be interested in actually analyzing the data and doing some sort of natural language processing over it. Okay, this is it. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me, and I look forward to discussing all this with you.
Thank you very much. All right, so I guess we'll go on to questions. Again, if you do not want to speak up, you're more than welcome to write your questions in the chat. And I guess I don't see any hand raised for now, but I guess I just had a small comment about something you said, Bastien. When you were talking about difficulties in developing your own small research teams. I mean, this is, I mean, in academia, you have the option to do this as well, right? So often it's true that you do need to have a doctorate and then a postdoc, and then you apply for funding, and then you can develop, if you obtain it with an accord and everything, you can develop your research team there as well. So I think that there is this option in academia as well.
Yeah, definitely there is this option, but the track, the path you can take to get there is really different, because in industry, you just have to convince like one or two executives at the top tier of a company, and you will get funding if you manage to convince one or two really influential people within a company, which is really different from how academia is working and competition for grants, which is really like a sad and hard part of academia. But I agree that you can also get there, like just doing research in academia.
All right, thank you. We'll take questions from the audience. So
yes, just to
go ahead.
I agree with what you say, because in the industry, it's quite easy for PhD students to have trainees, for example. I don't know how it works in laboratories, but in firms, it's quite easy for us if they want to
have interns.
Yeah, to have trainees.
Yeah, so I guess in labs, often what happens is as a doctoral student, you get to supervise other master's students, and then sometimes you'll have younger, but it's not the same thing.
No, because these trainees can contribute to your work, to your PhD work. So yeah, that's people that can help you.
Yeah. So ideally, the master's students sometimes either take on their own, or if they're in M1, they'll actually contribute to your thesis project or another project. But it's true that it does really depend on the time that the student can allocate.
Yes, you're right.
All right, so we have a question from Donna. So do you find it difficult with the thesis to combine the research world, so aka having the best methodology, long-term vision, and the state-of-the-art research to increase knowledge, and the company world, so making fast results with the goal of making money with those findings? And so how do you concretely make compromises to conduct your research?
So should I answer first?
Yes, I think that you should answer first, and then I would add things about our CIFRE PhD.
Yeah, my overall strategy, and I'm pretty happy with it, is I spend quite a lot of time not doing research for my PhD topic, but this way I can deliver on in fast ways in order to prove that I provide value to the company. So I help with important analysis for short-term decisions, and which are not related to my PhD topic. But this way, again, I can gain trust and a position of influence within like the company. And then when I need this, when I need strong support for committing to long-term actions, for instance, the type of work I'm doing on Twitter, it takes, I want to be having results before a long time. I can use the support I've gained and the trust I gained in order to invest in long-term projects. I think you really have to see, like try to do both at the same time. Like, yeah, try to be clever on doing allocating your time for small-term actions and small-term analysis, even if they are not related to your thesis, and at the same time use the influence you can get from these short-term actions in order to develop your CIFRE project. Because support in the end makes a lot of difference for you. For instance, I wouldn't be having the right to recruit interns if I didn't deliver on short-term actions. So you invest in the company, and then if you're doing some good work, the company can invest in your project. And it's not, a lot of it is really informal. And just having a CIFRE contract, like there is a like a status in law, but what you're doing with your time and what's the most clever way to get to the end of your thesis is not necessarily what's in the contract. It's actually more like the soft skills are really important, for instance, in order to navigate the corporate world. So, yeah.
Yes, I think it's, I totally agree with what you say, Bastien, because everything is a balance to be negotiated, in fact. So as you said, well, my PhD is not CIFRE, but I supervised CIFRE thesis, and I also do actually. And I think that you can do both, which means you can do conceptual research and applied research if you convince people that it is valuable. And academic publications are can also be valuable for firms. So you just have to negotiate. And you're right, soft skills matter in that field, because you really have to convince people that what you want to do, and especially if it is conceptual research, can have an application or something about what is valuable for the firm. But as you say, it can be really large, because for instance, our research on soft skills taxonomy is not at first sight really valuable for mass transit mobility, for example. And in fact it is, but not quite directly. But I think that it depends also on people you have around you, because if people who supervise you are flexible and they respect what you want to do within your career, if you want to, I know that students do CIFRE, and then they want to have an academic career. Well, it's perhaps not so easy, but they have to attend conferences, they have to do a lot of publications, so they have to take time for that, and they have to convince their manager in the firm to let them do so.
Thank you. Now we'll take a question from Clémence. So what would you say are the most successful profiles around you? For instance, people who thrive in your organizations in terms of soft, but also hard skills. So randomized control trials, data science, general cognition, and so forth.
Sorry, I didn't hear the end of the question.
The end is, what are the profiles around you that are the most successful in terms of soft skills, but also hard skills?
What do you mean by successful? Because successful can be the status you have or the ability you have to do what you want.
I think what Clémence was saying is the people who thrive. So I guess the people who progress in the organizations, if I'm correct. Clémence, please feel free to correct me if through the chat. I don't know if you, Chantal and Bastien, if you see, but you can open the chat and you have the list of questions that I'm reading out loud. But so I think what Clémence is saying, yes, it's the extent to which I guess someone progresses.
Do you want to answer, Bastien?
Yeah, I can go first if you want.
Yeah.
I feel that the higher you are in a company, the more technical skills are not really that important. Like the type of actions you take when you're a top executive, in the end, it depends on not a lot, especially with regards to our framework in research, where we have to prove everything and we have to replicate findings, and there's a strong epistemological pressure on us. But this type of epistemological pressure for executives is really different. It's more about an ability to establish priorities and follow them and deliver on results. And sometimes like big decisions are only being taken just because you found a big correlation between two variables, and like just being able to in order to really answer the question, I think that most successful profiles, the higher you go, are people which are able to make really synthetic decisions. You have a lot of data inputs and you really simplify everything and you make one big decision and you follow it. So this ability to make priorities, I think, is really what makes me distinguish between people at RATP, who I think are really impressive, from people who are just technically knowledgeable, but don't have the same type of ability. I don't know if I'm clear.
Yes, it's clear. Well, I will add that SNCF is a company with a lot of engineers, and analytical thinking is really something important. And of course, as far as security is concerned, it's essential. So people who are successful mostly have a technical background. And it can be background in engineering or even in cognitive fields, but you have to be really logical and to prove what you say. So this is really cultural. This is a really basic value in SNCF. But if you are really ambitious and you want to progress, of course, you have to convince, you have to prioritize. I'm okay with Bastien. But I think that you have to be able to have a really complex and global view of situations and to be able to express things simply, because people have to understand and follow you quite quickly. So your view, your vision can be really detailed and complex, but you have to remain really convincing. So of course, it's not simplifying things, but you have to vulgarize things. They have to follow you quite quickly and easily. That's why design, for example, is really important. The design of your talks and your presentations. I think also that human people are the most successful, people that care about others, and people then who are able of gathering around them other people even more intelligent than them. These are, to me, the most brilliant, and so I hope successful people in firms.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you. We're going to take a question from Pierre now, which is, so how can companies be convinced of the value of cognitive science as a source of innovation? Should the economic gain be emphasized?
Economic gains, well, we both are in public firms, in fact. So it's hard to say that it is the first aim of these research or projects about cognitive sciences. I think that they have to enlighten something. They have to broaden the visions of people. So it's not directly and quickly related to economic gains, but there are also non-economic gains. And we see how important they are in CSR, for example. And I think that cognitive science can bring so much as far as human management is concerned, for instance, or engagement and resistances. So it's perhaps hard to link it straight to economic gains as far as our activity is concerned. I think that it is linked with comfort and content satisfaction, as Bastien said. Transilien is in SNCF like RATP. So we are concerned about clients' satisfaction. And of course, if clients are satisfied, they take train. And so it has a link with economics. It also has a link with non-economic value of our firms, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And I think more and more like companies and political systems try to objectify what previously was just informal perception or cognition. Like the fact that we have so much data and indicators of client satisfaction, of user satisfaction, and the fact that more and more like we try to make like financial incentives depending on whether clients are satisfied. For instance, in the European law, like you can't have monopolies anymore on public transport, and so this is why more and more like when new lines appear or when old lines or contracts are renewed, they look a lot at customer satisfaction, because there's a European law enforce competition, and what will make the difference between your competitor actually gaining the contract and you gaining the contract is getting the customer experience, so his perception and cognition just right. So this is more and more important, and the fact that economic gain is increasingly tied to perception and cognition because of these indicators make it that I don't see it as a negative aspect anymore, like the fact that there is a link with economic gain. I think that you should actually play it, because this is one way you could convince people that the research is valuable.
Yes.
Instead of, yeah.
Exactly. It helps to convince that cognition matters.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, I think we'll take one more question. From Clémence. So what do you wish people coming from academia knew about working in companies? Do you have examples of unrealistic hope we tend to have, or blunders we tend to make when we join companies?
When students join the company, they are integrated in a team, well, as far as we are concerned. So it's our job to hear their hopes and to confront them with the working reality the reality of the working world. So first, I think that students, PhD students, have to be really flexible. They have to adapt a lot. They have rights to have idealistic vision of what they want to do and their career and their research, and that's fine. That will bring them a lot of energy to go on. But they also have to adapt to our constraint. And I think that sometimes it's really frustrating. So emotional regulation matters too. You see that Bastien is smiling. Do you want to add something?
Yeah, it can be really frustrating, actually. You expect a company to have clear processes and clear data sets, and you ask someone, and
they do.
You find data. But in fact, when I arrived at RATP, I was really disappointed because I didn't manage to find quickly interesting data sets within the company, because accessing data is really complex, and there is not a single database at RATP. You have like, I don't know, 30 or 40 different data systems which are scattered across the company, and for each data system you want to access, it takes so much time to go through all the organizational steps in order to get there. So it can be really frustrating sometimes because the corporate life and corporate world is quite complex. Many different people are working on many different things, and they all have different interests outside of the company's interest for clients and satisfaction, which for instance at RATP everyone shares. But within the company, it's really, you spend a lot of time just navigating the corporate complexities, and it can be really frustrating, and emotional self-regulation is pretty important, I agree.
Yes, you have to be persistent.
Yeah, but in the end, it pays off. Like, I really believe in the end, when you're really settled and you've learned how to deal with it, you're really happy where you find yourself to be.
And I think that data access is eased when you are in a company and you want to work on mobility, for example, and you have in a laboratory and you don't have access to SNCF or RATP, for instance. It may be even more difficult and frustrating.
All right. Well, thank you so much for these interesting questions and this discussion. So I think we'll close it here. And for those who didn't get a chance to ask their questions, please feel free to contact them. I'm sure that both Bastien and Chantal would be happy to answer your questions. And thank you so much, Chantal and Bastien, for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
for your invitation.
I will answer in the chat. I don't know if the room is going to be closed because there are some questions I can answer actually.
Okay.
I don't know.
I guess when I end, I can not end the meeting for all if you'd like.
Yeah, if you can.
Yeah. And all right, well, thank you so much. I'll put the recording online, and yeah, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Camille, and great talking to you, Chantal.
Merci, Bastien, et ravi.
Oui, enchanté.
Enchanté.
Bye, everyone. Have a nice day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.